Warren Buffett has just sold his stock in Activision Blizzard. Now, if you have a keen eye, you may have already worked this out, because Berkshire already stated this in a past SEC filing, which made headlines at the time. However, now we see it coming up in what was undoubtedly the most important revelation from his 13F filing. Today we're going to discuss why Warren Buffett liquidated one of his biggest investments. As one of the best stock pickers in history, Warren Buffett frequently serves as an example for investors everywhere. Some of those people would be interested to learn that Berkshire Hathaway, Buffett's parent firm, has taken a focused interest in video powerhouse Activision Blizzard throughout 2022. Berkshire Hathaway owned around 1.8% of Activision Blizzard at the end of 2021, with shares rising from 64.3 million to 68.4 million in August, or nearly 8.7% of Activision. Buffett expanded his position in the gaming company many times in 2022. Let's look at what makes Buffett interested in it. Following Microsoft's announcement in January that it would acquire the gaming company for $95 per share in an all-cash deal valued at $68.7 billion, Buffett decided to boost his investment in Activision Blizzard. The transaction would be the largest in the history of the gaming sector, drawing attention from international regulators. When Berkshire Hathaway boosted its position in the company for the first time in April, because analysts thought the action was a gamble in light of impending regulatory judgments. Buffett's decision to purchase a large amount of Activision stock was an indication that he believes the transaction will succeed. To avoid Microsoft gaining an excessive amount of market dominance in the video gaming industry, the acquisition must receive permission from a number of international bodies. The second best-selling video game franchise in the world, Call of Duty from Activision, is the source of the problem. More than 200 million consumers bought $3 billion worth of franchise-related goods in just 2020. Under Microsoft's ownership, those titles might give the company a considerable advantage over rivals in luring people to its platforms and services. Even though Microsoft would benefit financially from owning Activision Blizzard's game collection, it's unlikely that it will eventually gain complete market dominance. The fact that it would still only be the third largest video game firm behind Tencent and Sony even after this acquisition is encouraging for the deal's regulatory approval. Investors in the game company would see their shares vanish from their portfolios, replaced with the cash value if the acquisition goes through, because the Activision Blizzard acquisition would be an all-cash transaction. Currently trading at roughly $75 per share, Activision Blizzard's stock has been ranging between $75 and $79 over the last month. Consequently, at Microsoft's purchase price of $95 per share, potential buyers stand to make a profit of just over 26%. If the acquisition closes, the value of the Berkshire Hathaway stake, which is now estimated to be $5.1 billion, will increase to $6.4 billion. Activision Blizzard shares can still be a wise, long-term investment, even if the transaction does not go through. The share price is still 28% below the peak it hit in February 2021, before it started to decline as a result of unfavorable press regarding the way the business treated its employees. Additionally, Buffett invested in Activision Blizzard prior to the announcement of the Microsoft acquisition, showing his confidence in the company's future. The CMA disclosed that it intended to enter Phase 2 of its inquiry and adopt an even more in-depth approach to its regulatory process. The Activision Blizzard acquisition by Microsoft has raised worries from the British antitrust regulator about potential anti-competitive effects. The next stage for the CMA will be to investigate if the agreement means that Microsoft might withhold or degrade Activision's content from competitors' platforms or services, and whether it will raise barriers to entry and foreclose rivals in cloud gaming services. The major worry is that Microsoft would restrict Call of Duty to its Xbox gaming platforms. Microsoft, meanwhile, has already stated that it has no plans to do so, which should allay concerns about antitrust. Regulators may approve the agreement, with the caveat that Activision games cannot become exclusive to Xbox consoles. This requirement would not diminish the value of the agreement for Microsoft. When Microsoft announced that they were interested in purchasing Activision Blizzard in Q1 2022 to add yet another set of high-profile video game titles to their Xbox business, Warren Buffett called this a workout or a risky arbitrage play. Buffett described it at the time as a play where he was not necessarily buying Activision for the company itself, but rather holding it because there was significant money to be made if the acquisition went through. Microsoft declared their intention to acquire Activision for $95 per share. Activision then transforms into another kind of security. There are some stocks whose value is determined not by market price movement, but rather by the occurrence of a specific business event. So in any case, we currently hold 9.5% of Activision. If the sale closes, we profit. And if it doesn't, who can predict what will happen at the time, said Buffett. Activision shares are now selling for around $81, but Microsoft's plans would see them purchase all investor shares for $95. Now that this offered a potential 17% upside if the sale went through, Buffett seized the opportunity. This is a substantial sum of money for a straightforward acquisition going through. However, as we know, both the US FTC and the UK's Competition and Markets Authority ultimately opposed the deal strongly. While Activision Blizzard shares have more recently closed up near $90, aka gamblers are projecting a considerably higher possibility that the purchase will be completed despite the ongoing dispute. In my opinion, we just provide the information that's necessary in the 13F filing for anything we file when it comes to what we do with stocks. But I will say this. In my opinion, Microsoft has been surprisingly eager to work with regulatory bodies. They want to do the deal, and they have more than met the opposition's expectations. However, just because a certain country, in this case the UK, wants to market there does not ensure that it will be implemented. They are more advantageously situated to stop it. Then, regardless of how things turn out, if it doesn't pass in the United States, I don't believe Microsoft or Activision failed in any way. Not everything that ought to occur, occurs, I would argue, but that's life in the big city, and what we do will depend on a lot of factors. This is what he said at the Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting. If you compare the share price of Activision between when Buffett acquired and sold, you'll see exactly what he accomplished. The absurd thing is that Buffett most likely didn't even incur losses. If he had purchased after the Microsoft announcement, he would have paid about $80 per share, but during Q2, the stock's lowest point was around $76. Therefore, the 17% difference between the share price and the suggested acquisition price is absurd. Back in Q1 2022, there was nearly a margin of safety where Buffett was able to exit the investment relatively undamaged, even after the FTC and the CMA declared they would try to prevent the acquisition. We are aware of your likely current thoughts. Only 70% of Buffett's investment was sold. Why are we drawing such broad inferences that he's been duped? He still owns some shares, right? The answer, then, is no. He no longer holds any shares, but thanks to Ted, or Todd, Berkshire Hathaway still does. There are 3 individuals represented when looking into Berkshire Hathaway in the 13F. Warren Buffett is first, followed by Todd Coombs and Ted Weschler. Ted and Todd both oversee around $15 billion apiece, while Warren Buffett is responsible for the large behemoth investments. In the first quarter of 2022, Buffett began purchasing Activision. In Q4 of 2021, Berkshire Hathaway actually acquired 40,654,121 shares in Activision. Therefore, Ted or Todd may have already established themselves in the organization for various reasons. Look at their most recent 13F filing for the quarter prior to Microsoft's announcement and fast forward to today. They currently own 14,658,121 shares of Activision. Though Buffett has already made the decision to sell his holdings, aka Ted or Todd are still holding on to their shares. This is not going as well as he had hoped. He most likely didn't lose any money though. Because Warren Buffett sold, the Microsoft-Activision combination will not go ahead at this time. Warren Buffett typically just gives up when he can no longer predict the outcome. In all honesty though, the market has grown more confident that this deal would go through since he departed the role. The stock price is currently up close to $90. This brings a spread of around 5% much closer to Microsoft's offer of $95 per share. That's all about today's video. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Also, click the notification bell to get informed by our upcoming videos.